I'm now starting a new chapter, the executive or the executive, as you call it. You must have studied this kind of question, this kind of chapter in your ninth standard also. That is executives, and that was in the working of institutions. In that, we had already done that when the government mechanism works. We have some people जिनको हम कहते हैं political and permanent executives, those whom we elect through the elections. They are political, whereas those who are coming through the selection process, that is the administrative machinery या फिर civil servants, they are the permanent executives. And that is what we are going to study in this chapter also. The only difference is there you had studied it in some different format. Here the format would be a bit different, and of course the level would be 1% high. So who is an executive? अभी तक हम लोगों ने पढ़ा elections, representation. So when the government is formed, as we have a democratic form of government, then we also have divided our organs into legislative, executive, and judiciary. So with the organ which is looking after the making of law, then how those laws should be implemented, how it should be administrated, that it all is, those all are called as executive. So they involve, first of all, वो क्या करेंगे? They would be making the policies for us. For example, in some countries we call them as presidents, like US. In some countries we call them as chancellors, which is equivalent to prime ministership. Like if you remember the chapter Hitler, he was a chancellor. Then in our country we call it with some other names, and in our country we have two kinds of executives. The one political, yani ki president, prime ministers, the council of ministers, and the permanent, yani ki jo civil servants. So let us first of all learn. This is important. Now, this is important. What are the different types of executives that are there in different political sectors or different countries? I have already told you that in countries like US, they don't elect their representatives. हमारा representative type of government है. उनका presidential है. So they elect their president. In our country, Prime Minister is the head of the government. He is the leader of the political party which comes up as a winner. Whereas in a presidential system, the head of the state as well as the head of the government is president. And that is why his power is more, both in theory and practice, like US, Brazil, some nations in Latin America. In some countries, we have the semi-presidential. Remember class 11, this came in the exam. Means here under this yani ki executive presidency, the people directly elect the president, and maybe the president and prime minister sometimes may be belonging to the same political party, or maybe the prime minister belongs to other political party. हमारे यहाँ the elections of president is something very different. He actually will not be representing the political party, but he would be nominated. France, Russia, Sri Lanka. Then countries like India, Italy, Japan, UK, Portugal, they all have the prime minister as the head of government. In most parliamentary systems have a president or a monarch. Like in UK, the king is the head of the state. In our country, the head of the state, यानी कि country का head हम लोग first citizen हम बोलते हैं president. Whereas जो head of government होता है, the one who wins and comes, he is the one who will rule. The role of president or monarch is primarily ceremonial. Ceremonial means that they are only required at certain areas. Whereas the prime minister as well as the cabinet wields effective power. This is because they are actually elected by the people. हमारे यहाँ पर what is the parliamentary executive systems in executive system. Even before 1947, Indian Government of India Act 1919 and 1935 were there. And if you remember the very first chapter, we had taken certain provisions of these acts also while we were framing the constitution. तो इसीलिए इसी मतलब कि experience को देखकर it was seen that the executive can be effectively controlled by the representatives of the people. So why did we go for a parliamentary system? Why not for a presidential? The very first reason is Indian constitution wanted that government should be sensitive to public expectations and would be responsible and accountable. And that is only possible when we are having our representatives from those whom we want. अगर हमने एक प्रेसिडेंट को इलेक्ट किया और वो अपने साथ वो रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स लाया, तो मे बी दैट पर्सन इज नॉट दैट मच सेंसिटिव टू आवर प्रॉब्लम्स. Secondly, the presidential executive puts much emphasis on the president as the chief executive and source of all. There is always a danger of personality cult. This is one of the very important and you can say very common thing. The executive will be answerable to and controlled by legislature or people's representatives. Because the president is elected, तो उसके अंदर अपनी वो उसकी जो personality है, that may reflect in the working also. Whereas in the representatives are responsible for their own constituencies. So no power can overpower them. ना हमारे यहाँ जो भी प्राइम मिनिस्टर होगा ना, he cannot overrule any person. He has to be sensitive to the needs of the people. So that is the main one of the very you can say unique feature. अब पार्लियामेंट में क्या है और प्रेसिडेंशियल में क्या है? प्रेसिडेंट हमारे यहाँ पर है हेड ऑफ द स्टेट, द फर्स्ट सिटीजन, and prime minister is the head of government and his council of minister runs the government at the national level. But we do have the federal system. हमारे यहाँ system is federal, यानी कि the country has been divided into small parts called as states. And at the state level also we need someone to represent. And at the state level, the person is called as chief minister. Then जो president की जो जगह है वो होता है governor. जो powers हमारे यहाँ wield होता है by the वो governor होता है. And of course the council of ministers. वहाँ हम MP बोलते हैं, यहाँ हम MLA बोलते हैं, members of legislative assembly. Remember class 11, whenever you are having any chapter, the current scenario would always be there in your paper. You can expect, for example, जब मैंने election representation करवाया था, तो I asked you that first हमारा जो election commissioner Sukumar Sen and current. Similarly, you may be asked who was the first president of independent India, who is the current president. So this is the one. Now let us come to the president. कि president को हम कौन है, किस आर्टिकल के अंडर he or she. वैसे हम लोग जब constitution बोलते हैं तो we use the word she. but that does not refer to the gender. That's an address. And what is the procedure of election of the president? Oh. As per the constitution, the president holds the highest executive authority. He has many powers. मतलब उसके पास बहुत सारे powers हैं, which we would be reading. And he is said to be the head of the state, and state here represents a country, not any state. And the represents the Republic of India. He or she would be called as the first citizen of India. So to qualify as a president, one must be, of course, a citizen about 35, must be qualified to become the member of Lok Sabha, and should not hold any office or profit under the government. If in case the person is holding any office, means the person is holding any prominent position, then the person, if he or she has been nominated, then they have to resign within the given period. जैसे हमारे यहाँ पर हुआ था प्रणब मुखर्जी. He was actually one of the prominent members from Congress, and he also held the position. But when his name was nominated, he resigned. Of course, he was one of the best presidents we had. Up, what is the procedure? You can expect this question also. We do not elect our president. हम अपने प्रेसिडेंट को, और हम उनको बोलते हैं जो इलेक्ट करते हैं, उनको हम बोलते हैं इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज. This particular question was there in the MCQ. The President of India is elected through the members of Electoral College. So now, is it some college? No. The Electoral College का मतलब है the role in which all the members, हम लोगों ने तो उनको elect किया है जो पार्लियामेंट में है, and those who have not been elected, those who are playing the role of opposition. Whereas the president is elected by the members, जो MPs हैं आपके दोनों houses के, लोकसभा राज्यसभा. Then जितनी आपके states हैं उनके जो legislative assemblies हैं उनके members, and of course जो आपके UTs हैं, elected members of Legislative Assembly of Delhi and Puducherry, they all vote. अब इसको हम पहले कैसे, मतलब कि how do we campaign? Is there any campaigning? Yes, of course. The campaigning is not done what we do for the normal people. Each political party may nominate his or her representative. If the person is holding any position, the person has to resign. If he or she is not holding the position, then उसके बाद they can put forth the manifestos. वो अपने manifestos रख सकते हैं, बता सकते हैं. And then it is a secret ballot जहां पर हर एक member of the Legislative Assembly at the state level and the MPs at the union level vote for the person. बट उसका जो वोटिंग सिस्टम होता है वो हम ऑलरेडी, हम लोग जो है इसे पहले वाले चैप्टर में पढ़ चुके हैं, इलेक्शन एंड रिप्रेजेंटेशन में, विच हैज कि जिसको मतलब कि देयर आर 3 पीपल एंड वन, मतलब कि देन वी हैव टू चूज, हम लोगों को अपना चॉइस बताना पड़ता है. जिसको लीस्ट चॉइस मिलता है उसके वोट्स हटा दिए जाते हैं और उसको ऐड कर दिया जाता है. दैट इज द सिस्टम. So that is the system for now. यहाँ पर आपके एक तो I'll tell you the legislative powers. Then we also have certain emergency powers. Then the discretionary powers. These 3 are very, 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 very important from this chapter. मतलब अगर हम president से कभी questions आए हैं तो most of the time, if it is an MCQ, these kinds of questions come. But if it is a 5-marker or 3-marker question, then if a 4-marker question, then the question is of the executive power, discretionary powers, which are very important. Now, all the prime minister, जब जो भी prime minister, जब भी if the tenure is there, if there has been an election or re-election, the jo prime ministers and councils of ministers hai, they are appointed by the president. Secondly, the chief justice, the judges of Supreme Court and High Court, they are appointed with the consultation of the council of ministers, as well as जो आपके सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जो हायर जज होते हैं उनके साथ मिलकर the chief justice and judges are decided and appointed. Then the chairman, and we have 8 or 9 members of UPSC, the one who are conducting the Union Public Service Commission, that is the highest IAS, IPS, unko appoint karna. CAG, that is Prompter and Auditor Control, Attorney General, Chief Election Commissioner, they all are appointed by the President. And the beauty is that once they are appointed, then the chief, he or she will also be the chief commander for all the 3 forces. Once these people are appointed, prime minister, they have to work on their own. इसके बाद president cannot wield his or her power on them. He or she can ask. They have to report. The prime minister has to give the report, but not control. So the very first is legislative, यानी कि जहां law बनता है वहां president का क्या power है. मतलब कि कोई ऐसा propagation हुआ है, कुछ हुआ, तो the president can summon, they can ask for the report, they can ask for the responses. If there is any case where the Lok Sabha has to be dissolved, like election se pehle, so it is he. Then if there is any situation where joint sitting is there for both the parliament, both the houses, because there are certain issues when the issues are not completely taken, then there is a joint sitting, usko president karta hai. And if there is any recess of parliament, recess matlab any gap, the president can also pass the orders. Now comes the judicial powers, means in the intervention of judiciary. ये आपका जो है सबसे important होता है, जो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के अंदर. See, we go to the, first of all, a person might be going to the High Court, then to the Supreme Court, and in case Supreme Court has also refused, and it is only the president who has the power to pardon or reduce the sentence. So it is according to the Article 72, the judicial power preside. The president can grant a pardon or reduce the sentence of any convicted under central laws. For example, pardon, बिल्कुल मतलब कि मना वो कर देना. Reprieve, remit, respite or commute. Respite मतलब giving some relief. Giving some relief. Remit again माफ कर देना. And reprieve means cancel. Reprieve means cancel or commute. वैसे तो commute का जो English meaning है वो है to move from one place to another. So it may be transferred. So these are some of the, but that would depend on what kind of case it is. किस तरीके का कहाँ से आया है, what have been the provisions earlier, and on what ground Supreme Court has refused the pardon, then only it goes to president. There have been 1 or 2 issues where the issues have gone to the president, and of course it has been our fortune that president has taken a proper honest opinion on that. Already told you, the president is also the supreme commander of the armed forces. तीनों forces के आपका supreme commander वही होता है. Now, one of the most important, the emergency powers of president. See, emergency is a situation, and according to constitution you will be having a very thorough reading of the same in your 12th standard, a very important, very interesting chapter, that in India there was a national emergency during 1974 to 75, which was actually not necessary or needed, but it was there. So when does the president have this power? And then constitutional, which has never occurred, of course, and financial emergency. तो ऐसे हमारे threats रहे हैं जब the president is supposed to announce, proclaim. The very first, according to Article 352, a very controversial it was, and there was lots of problem during that. It says that if there is some internal rebel, लोग जो है वो गोली बारूद पे उतर आए, some external aggression arising out of war, कोई लड़ाई, you are fearing some threat from some country, at that particular, in that particular situation, if the prime minister requests, then the president can proclaim emergency. In our country, it was there, which has been very controversial because there was lots of misinterpretation key what constitution says and why that national emergency was actually proclaimed. Because national emergency का मतलब होता है हम जो common people है हमारे सारे civil liberties खत्म. It's in a way you are living under the military rule. Secondly, the very, you can say, dangerous is that the government has the weapon of arresting anyone on any ground. And that can lead to so many, problems. If you read about the national emergency, which was there on 25th June 1974, you will understand कि कितने सारे problems हुए थे. So many leaders were arrested. There was what you call as detention, preventive detention. अभी जितने हमारे बहुत सारे अच्छे leaders हैं, like our current prime minister, some of the prominent leaders, they all were arrested. And if you look into the entire episode, you will find that there was no need. But क्योंकि इसके पीछे एक शाह कमीशन भी बिठाया गया था, when the मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि प्रेसिडेंट ने डिक्लेयर कर दिया हो गया, then there was a proper commission set up. Commission के अंदर what the response was that कि there is armed threat, whereas that was only a threat. Definitely threat तो था, because the entire opposition parties had joined together and they were planning for a protest, but that protest was not some rebel. तो जब law and order में आपको लगता है, the government feels that there is a threat to the law and order of the country, at that particular situation, he or she can request the president to declare emergency. Second is constitutional emergency. Yani ki this is when in a particular state also you might have heard उस particular state के अंदर president's rule. यानी कि executive machinery आपकी fail हो गई है. The constitutional provisions are not implemented, and then for a certain period there might be president's rule. यानी कि जो ruling government है now, that would have no power till the elections are done, and it would be in the pursuit of president. Second, any financial instability. If there is something, agar lagta hai the country is going through turmoil, then the president can also declare financial emergency. Uske andar, those who are working directly or indirectly with the government, they all have the financial problems. But yes, president's rule हमारे यहाँ एक दो मतलब कि states के अंदर डाला गया है. National emergency was there, which is also called as one of the black period of our history. So these have been there, and that is at the discretionary of president. There shall be, this is article 74, which says, ये मैंने आपको पहले ही बताया था कि जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर होता है वो along with the council minister, he is the one जो advise करता है president को to for any implementation. Now the next is discretionary power, और इसके अंदर आप लोगों के से मतलब कि पेपर के अंदर आपको जो president का veto power है, which is also called as pocket veto. That is one of the important questions from this particular sector. Discretionary matlab definitely he has to be right to be informed. As I said, the prime minister needs to furnish all the information. And agar kabhi kabhi president ko lagta hai there is certain thing which he needs to know, so then the prime minister has to go and oblige. The president often gives written communication to the prime minister where his views are at least given. आप ले रहे हो नहीं ले रहे हो, but the person would definitely give. तो मतलब वो अपनी जगह पर अपनी मर्जी जहां own discretion मतलब where he is expressing his views, वो है reconsideration. That may be for any law. Veto power, which is a pocket veto, which in our country, which has been used in our country, and appointment of the prime minister in case of no clear majority. The president has the authority to request that the council reconsider their decision. He has the veto power to withhold or refuse to give assent or to bills passed by parliament. But money bills में there is nothing. Money bills आपके जो है, they are 14 days. It can be there in Rajya Sabha. But if the if Rajya Sabha does not agree, then it will be passed. Whereas, because money bill pertains to the budget and it is for the welfare of the people. इसीलिए बाकियों में the president can ask for reconsideration. मान लो कोई bill pass हुआ and the president feels ये bill सही नहीं है, मतलब this decision is not right, then he or she can ask to reconsider. Before becoming law, every bill passed by parliament is sent to the president for his signature. So he has the authority to send the bill back to parliament for reconsideration. Now comes pocket veto. As I said, this is a very special question. And I've often seen this question in the papers. Pocket veto का मतलब होता है certain times there might be. The veto power is limited. Because if parliament passes the same bill again, sends it back to the president has to give assent to it. अब हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर जो है एक मतलब कि there is one thing, that is there is no time frame for the reconsideration. यानी कि उसे कब वापस करना है, that is within 10 days, 15 days, 3 months, 6 months, ऐसा कुछ नहीं लिखा. It is not given. So this becomes a pocket veto for him, because if he is not giving back the bill साइंड तो वो बिल लागू नहीं होगा। एंड उसके दौरान मान लीजिए कि द प्रेसिडेंट और द इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट चेंजेस, बोथ कैन हैपन। अगर प्रेसिडेंट का टेन्योर खत्म हो गया, द प्रेसिडेंट कैन चेंज, और द गवर्नमेंट है उसका टेन्योर खत्म हो गया और गवर्नमेंट चेंज हो गई, तो दैट बिल विल रिमेन ओनली अ बिल, दैट वुड नेवर बिकम अ लॉ। I think in our country it was during the period of Zail Singh, Yani Zail Singh, when this pocket veto was used. मतलब the bill was sent, unfortunately उसके दौरान हमारा जो मतलब कि गवर्नमेंट चेंज हो गया and the bill could never be passed. So that's called as pocket veto. There have been many instances जब लोकसभा में इलेक्शंस हुए and no party got a complete majority. Now there are two ways. एक है मतलब नॉर्मली क्या होता है, सम पार्टीज अलाइन टुगेदर, वो अपना अलायंस बना लेते हैं एंड दे मतलब कि दे विश टू मेक द फॉर्म द गवर्नमेंट, एंड ऐसा भी नहीं हुआ, देन री इलेक्शंस हैव टू बी देयर, एंड री इलेक्शंस का मतलब है द एंटायर प्रोसेस हैज टू बी डन अगेन। उसका मतलब है कि दिस मतलब कि पूरा का पूरा सब कुछ पैसा फिर से खर्च करना, which is a costly as well as a lengthy affair. So at that particular situation, the Prime Minister may choose अपने judgment पर किसी भी political party को to form the government and prove its majority within the given time. It's not only forming the government, they have to prove the majority also. तो ऐसा हमारे यहाँ हुआ भी है. When no party got a clear majority, it was the president who chose, and then they proved their majority. They did not come with the people's majority, but it was the president's discretionary power that they came into power. So this is how there are some discretionary powers which the president can wield. बच्चे, pocket veto is one of the important. Then आपका this one, the emergency, this you can be asked. But these are very important from this particular concept. हमारे यहाँ अभी मतलब कि जो करंट वाइस प्रेसिडेंट है वो है जगदीप धनखड़. As I said, you must know the current prime minister, that you all know. We don't need to tell. The president, vice president. So this is the one. Now, vice president and president, you can see president, vice president. The vice presidents are also elected for 5-year term. The process is also same, but state legislatures जो हैं, they don't come. इसमें MPs जो होते हैं, they are the one, means all the members of both the houses, they would be one who elect. Then a resolution of the Rajya Sabha passed by a majority. नॉर्मली हम लोकसभा में करते हैं, यहाँ राज्यसभा जो है वो यूज करता है अपना पावर, एंड लोकसभा उसको अप्रूव करता है टू रिमूव द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट. मतलब टू रिमूव द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, इट इज द रेजोल्यूशन व्हिच हैज टू बी पास्ड बाय द राज्यसभा. नॉर्मली हमारे यहाँ दोनों हाउसेस होती हैं फॉर स्पेशल मतलब कि सर्टेन मेजॉरिटीज. ही इज द एक्स officio chairman of Rajya Sabha, यानी कि directly or indirectly he is the head of Rajya Sabha. And if in case the president जो है he has resigned, उनको निकाल दिया गया है, impeachment means due to certain reasons he have been removed या death, उस limited period के लिए vice president acts as a president. In our country, I think it was during the death of President B.D. Jatti when the Vice President acted as a President. It has been there. मतलब वो पर्टिकुलर पीरियड आपके जो प्रेसिडेंट है उनकी कुर्सी खाली नहीं रहती है. जो प्रेसिडेंट का काम होता है वो वाइस प्रेसिडेंट करता है. बट दैट्स अ वेरी ब्रीफ पीरियड. Now comes the most important, that is the ruling government. यानी कि the one who is in the rule, the government. प्रेसिडेंट हमारा जो है वो हेड ऑफ द स्टेट है. And as we already said, ceremonial. Ceremonial का मतलब होता है when there is a requirement. For example, all the oaths in our country pertaining to the appointments of prime minister or commander in सबका जो है it is done by the president. There are certain awards which are given only by the president. Then all the appointments of all the, they are all signed by the president. You must have seen जितनी treaties हम sign करते हैं with other countries, they are signed in the name of the president. Now the name doesn't, मतलब उस वक्त में कोई भी president हो सकता है. So as a president of India, तो जितने भी हमारे agreement sign होते हैं उस दौरान with any other country or any area, that is signed by the president. So that is where he is required, there he or she would act. Whereas prime minister और उसका जो council of ministers है, they have to act for day-to-day basis. उनका जब नहीं, उनका रोज ही है. They are responsible for the entire machinery of democratic government. And that is why in our country, Prime Minister has the most important government function. He is known as the head of the government or the Council of Ministers. Only on the advice of the Council of Ministers does the President exercise his powers. Now, जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर है, he or she is elected, not anonymously. हमारे यहाँ नहीं, हम प्राइम मिनिस्टर को इलेक्ट नहीं करते हैं. Every political party, while they are campaigning for their elections, they have to choose one person as their leader. And it depends on the people कि वो लोग जब देखते हैं तो natural है, जो भी पार्टी आपकी मेजॉरिटी के साथ आती है, जो उसका लीडर होता वो बन जाता हमारा प्राइम मिनिस्टर. So that means the prime minister must have the support of the majority of the members in the parliamentary form. But of course, he wields tremendous power. He is the one, जितने हमारे यहाँ ministers हैं, starting में 20 से लेकर we go till 80 ministers तक जाते हैं. तो जो उनका कैबिनेट होता है, जिसके अंदर आपके कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स, स्टेट मिनिस्टर्स, इंडिपेंडेंट मिनिस्टर्स, इन सबको चूज करना एंड रीचूज करना. यानी कि इट इज नॉट दैट कि एक पर्सन को मतलब मिनिस्टर बना दिया तो वो परमानेंटली आगे 5 साल काम करेगा. इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट. द प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैज द पावर टू चेंज द पोर्टफोलियो. अगर उनको लगता है दैट पर्सन इज नॉट केपेबल और maybe he deserves a better position, so the person may be changed. So it is he who assigns the ministers ranks and portfolios. जैसे cabinet minister, ministers of state or deputy minister, and then आपके आते हैं independent ministers. Cabinet ministers होते हैं those who are having the main portfolios. आपके जितने भी, जैसे हम बोलते हैं डिफेंस, होम मिनिस्ट्री, फाइनेंस, all these जो बड़े बड़े मिनिस्ट्री हैं जिसके अंदर दो, which is important for the entire country. And whenever there is a meeting of the cabinet, they all are supposed to be present in that meeting. Whereas आपके जो मिनिस्टर्स ऑफ स्टेट या फिर डिप्यूटी मिनिस्टर्स हैं, ये कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स को सुपरवाइज करते हैं. एंड देन वी ऑल्सो हैव इंडिपेंडेंट पोर्टफोलियोज, और ये वो होते हैं जो बिल्कुल छोटे छोटे होते हैं, जिनको हमेशा कैबिनेट मीटिंग्स में आने की जरूरत नहीं होती है. ओनली इफ देयर एरिया इज देयर देन दे हैव टू कम. फॉर एग्जांपल टेक्सटाइल्स, पावर. तो जब इनकी जरूरत होती है, इनसे रिलेटेड आपके लेजिस्लेचर है, then they have to. Whereas the cabinet ministers have to come whenever the prime minister is chairing some meeting. Then the state chief ministers जो होते हैं, they are elected by the own political parties. All ministers including prime minister must be members of parliament. अगर नहीं है तो they have to become the member within 6 months. मतलब if the person is an outsider, the person is not holding any membership, then the person has to become the member within 6 months. In fact, हमारे यहाँ पर जो prime minister है, he or she has many other powers also. Now comes the Council of Ministers. हमारे यहाँ हम Council of Ministers को cabinet बोलते हैं. The reason is they work together. They work together. Only the Prime Minister and ministers of rank of cabinet ministers are members of Union Cabinet according to Article 75. It's given. It's from your book only. Now, as I said, what will be the size of cabinet ministers? In fact, there was a controversy 3-4 years back also, because the number had exceeded. तो आपको पहले देखना पड़ता है कि हाउ मेनी कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर्स डू वी नीड. तो वो हमारे यहाँ पर जो है वो है, इट शुड बी 15%, shall not exceed 15% of the total number of members of House of People. That is, अगर पार्लियामेंट है और असेंबली इन द केस ऑफ स्टेट्स, दे आर द वन हु आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर लोकसभा. एंड अगर मान लो किसी एक मिनिस्ट्री पर भी नो कॉन्फिडेंस मोशन आया, then the entire government has to resign. अभी recently it happened, just 10 days back it happened. There was a complete no confidence motion. There was a coalition by the opposition and they had presented it. But जो हमारा मतलब कि जो वोट्स हुए थे उसके अंदर the ruling government had got more power, मतलब कि more votes than what you call as no confidence. One thing, remember class 11, that the no confidence जो होता है, that can be even against a single minister. And if it is proven, then the entire council of minister has to resign. And if it is on the prime minister, and if the prime minister resigns, then the council of ministers have to resign. मतलब this is a collective responsibility. मतलब कि this is one. When the prime minister dies or resigns, the council of ministers is automatically dissolved, but a minister's death or dismissal or resignation सिर्फ मिनिस्ट्रियल वैकेंसी को खत्म करता है. नो कॉन्फिडेंस हुआ वो अलग हो गया. नो कॉन्फिडेंस इज व्हेन पीपल आर वोटिंग दैट हमें इस इंसान के मतलब कि काम करने पर वी आर नॉट हैविंग द कॉन्फिडेंस. So that is something different. Whereas if that person is dead, जैसे हमारे यहाँ सुषमा स्वराज की हुई थी अनटाइमली डेथ, तो देन उनकी जगह हम दूसरे को लेकर आए. The Prime Minister, on the one hand, acts as a link between Council of Minister, President, as well as Parliament. He is the one who makes all the decisions. control of Council of Ministers, leadership of the Lok Sabha, command of the bureaucratic मतलब हमारे जो अभी हम पढ़ रहे हैं जैसे permanent executives हैं हमारे, all the bureaucrats, all the IPS, IAS, इन सब का, the media access, projection of personalities during election as a national leader during international summitry, जैसे हमारे यहाँ अभी G20 G70 होने वाला वो, and then foreign visits. These are all the sources of power for a prime minister, and you must have seen all these during the past 5 years. आप लोगों को इतना तो पता ही होगा कि इस वक्त में जो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर हैं, he is the one who has maximum visited outside, and international summits में काफी he has taken participation, and even right now India is also hosting. So he is the one who represents the same. मतलब तकरीबन जो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर का जो पावर है दैट इज देयर इन द स्टेट लेवल, बट वहां पर आपका क्या है कि प्रेसिडेंट अपॉइंट्स, जो गवर्नर है ना उसको भी प्रेसिडेंट अपॉइंट करता है. ये इस मतलब कि दिस इज वन ऑफ द कॉन्ट्रोवर्शियल क्वेश्चन विच हैज कम इन द एग्जाम आल्सो, कि हमारे यहाँ पर मानो या ना मानो जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट है इट हैज गॉट मोर पावर. दिस इज बिकॉज सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ऑलरेडी हैज ऑल द इम्पोर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट जिस पर उसको लॉ बनाना है. पहली बात तो यही है. सेकेंडली, डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली ऑल्सो जो गवर्नर्स अपॉइंट होते हैं ना, प्रेसिडेंट जो अपॉइंट होता है उसमें किसी पॉलिटिकल लीडर का हाथ नहीं होता, लेकिन जो गवर्नर्स अपॉइंट होते हैं they are appointed on the advice of the central government. The governor has more discretionary power than the chief minister. मतलब प्राइम मिनिस्टर हमारे यहाँ पर he has got all the powers. प्रेसिडेंट के पास he can give the answers, लेकिन चीफ मिनिस्टर जो है ना उसके पास सारे पावर्स नहीं होते. बाकी जो इलेक्शन का प्रोसेस है चीफ मिनिस्टर का सेम है. when the state elections are there, assembly elections होते हैं, तो जो पार्टी सबसे ज्यादा जीतती है उसका लीडर चीफ मिनिस्टर बनता है. he is the one जो legislative assembly को head करता है. he is the one who will be taking all the powers. लेकिन हमारे यहाँ प्राइम मिनिस्टर has got more power because he is not that much answerable to president, but गवर्नर को जो है he has got more discretionary power. इसके पीछे अभी दिल्ली के अंदर there was a great controversy and ultimately the और मतलब जो बिल है वो पास हुआ था, जो बिल है वो पास हुआ था अभी recently, and please always be updated for the recent changes. अभी दिल्ली का हुआ था because the ruling party claimed that, जो ruling party थी उन्होंने claim किया that they have the power since they are the head, but then it was passed that the governor has more discretionary powers than the chief ministers. And Delhi के साथ थोड़ा controversy इसलिए होता है क्योंकि Delhi doesn't come under exactly state. It is called as NCR, National Capital Region, National Capital Territory. So there was a controversy. तो डायरेक्टली और इनडायरेक्टली जो गवर्नर होता है who is also elected by the president is heading the states. तो कहीं ना कहीं इनडायरेक्टली स्टेट्स पर भी रूलिंग गवर्नमेंट का जो है कंट्रोल रहता है. The next is, अभी हमने जो पढ़ा था, they are all political executives and they are not called as temporary but they are political because they are elected through the mechanism of elections. इनको हम elect करते हैं, whereas जो हमारा permanent होता उनको हम select करते हैं. They come into the power only when they are, मतलब कि they have to give certain exams, they have to go through certain interviews and then they come to the. और एक कई बार हमारे यहाँ पर there are said many memes also, and it is also said that जो हमारे पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव्स हैं दे वील मोर पावर देन द परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव्स. जो परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव्स हैं सिविल सर्वेंट्स, दे आर मोर एजुकेटेड, दे आर मोर नॉलेजेबल, yet they have to work under political executive. The prime minister, ministers, large organization known as bureaucracy or administrative machinery make up government's executive. And ये जो legislature है, it has also authority over executive branch. The administrative officers are not allowed to act in contravention of legislature's policy. Ministers are responsible for maintaining political control over administration. So what about the professional? Politically तो political जो rule कर रहा वो करेगा, but जब ruling खत्म हो जाएगी, 5 years का tenure खत्म हो जाएगा, then who is going to look after those laws? कौन होगा जो उन laws को जो है मतलब कि whether they have been implemented, whether they are successfully done or not, who will be carrying that? For that we have the executives जिनको हम बोलते हैं permanent or civil servants. Even though the ruling party changes, they would remain in the office. Their portfolios may change, but their services do not end unless and until there is serious kind of allegations unko terminate kiya hai, they don't, they retire. And even after retirement also they are eligible for certain senior most positions in the country. So India has a developed प्रोफेशनल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. प्लीज बी मतलब कि इसके बारे में अच्छे से करना. द इंडियन ब्यूरोक्रेसी इज मेड अप ऑफ ऑल इंडिया सर्विसेज, स्टेट सर्विसेज, लोकल गवर्नमेंट एम्प्लॉइज, टेक्निकल एंड मैनेजरियल स्टाफ. तो इनको हम कैसे इलेक्ट करते हैं? इनको क्या देयर एनी इलेक्शंस? नो. हमारे जो गवर्नमेंट में काम करते हैं उनमें एक होते हैं द काउंसिल ऑफ मिनिस्टर, द कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर, जो कि उस पूरे मिनिस्ट्री को संभालते हैं पॉलिटिकली. वेयरएज उसका जो हेड होगा ही और शी वुड बी फ्रॉम द ऑल इंडिया सर्विसेज, दैट इज यूपीएससी. At the state level also we have some such services जिनको हम state services कहते हैं. अब उनके नीचे लोग काम करते हैं. Some may be section officer, some may be मतलब कि LDC, lower division clerk, some may be upper division clerk. They all are there, जो भी उनमें काम कर रहा है. और इन सब के लिए and then we definitely have the technical managerial staff. तो इनके लिए क्या होता है, अलग अलग एग्जाम्स कंडक्ट होते हैं. द मतलब कि जो स्टाफ सिलेक्शन कमीशन है SSC, आप लोगों के लिए बड़ा ही यूजफुल है ये. SSC जो है it conducts exams for all the local government, all the government employees, technical managerial staff, and उनके लिए there is मतलब हर साल definitely a bunch of people retire. Maybe some even leaves the job. Some of them may unfortunately leave the world. तो हर साल आपके जो है a number of vacancies are there. तो every year there is मतलब कि आपका जो है एग्जाम होता है जिसको हम बोलते हैं स्टाफ सिलेक्शन कमीशन. और ये जो स्टाफ सिलेक्शन कमीशन है इसके अलग अलग एग्जाम्स होते हैं. लाइक दे हैव द एग्जाम्स फॉर LDC, दे हैव द एग्जाम्स फॉर असिस्टेंट, मतलब वो अलग अलग होते हैं. एंड फर्स्ट you need to be a graduate, then you give the exam. और जब आपने एग्जाम दे दिया, if you have qualified the written, then you go for the practical. Like आपका जो भी है टेक्निकल है तो आपको टेक्निकल प्रैक्टिकल वहां पर दिखाना पड़ता है. And that's very tedious. Whereas आपके जो पुलिस वगैरह है इसमें आपके दो तरीके के होते हैं पुलिस. एक आपका होता है, यू मस्ट हैव सेड कि भाई वो हवलदार है, इंस्पेक्टर है. एंड सेकेंडली द पर्सन इज DCP, ही इज कमिश्नर ऑफ पुलिस. व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस? जो आपके ऑल इंडिया सर्विसेज हैं उनके अंदर ऑल द आईपीएस, आईएएस, आईएफएस, इन सबको सेलेक्ट किया जाए. एंड यू मस्ट हैव ऑलरेडी हर्ड अबाउट दिस कि भाई आईएएस का एग्जाम काफी टफ होता है. इट इज कंडक्टेड बाय यूपीएससी, यूनियन पब्लिक सर्विस कमीशन. दे हैव अ नंबर ऑफ, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आपको जो है देयर इज एलिजिबिलिटी क्राइटेरिया, वो सबके लिए होता है. मिनिमम आई थिंक मैक्सिमम एज अब 33 कर दिया है. देन यू मस्ट बी अ ग्रेजुएट. जैसे आप लोगों के लिए दैट इज वेरी वेरी यूजफुल बिकॉज आप में से कोई, चारों में से कोई भी एक बच्चा जो है वो आईएएस ऑफिसर, आईपीएस, आईएफएस जरूर बन सकता है. इट इज नॉट दैट यू व्हाट, वो आपकी रैंकिंग होती है. Once you clear the preliminary, you go for the advanced. इसके अंदर you need to choose your own subjects, and once you have cleared that, then you have to go through a series of interview. और उसी के लिए हमने ऊपर पढ़ा था अभी कि यूपीएससी के मेंबर्स होते हैं. तो जो यूपीएससी के मेंबर्स होते हैं ना, उनका काम होता है जो आपके आईएएस वगैरह हैं उनको सेलेक्ट करना. जो आपका राउंड ऑफ इंटरव्यूज होता है उनमें यही होते हैं एज अ पैनल. So they are the one who would be responsible for selecting the all India service से जो बच्चे निकल के आए हैं for the IAS, IPS, IFS इनकी. अब जो आपके पुलिस के हायर पोजीशंस हैं, they are all by UPSC. And then they are, according to their cadre, they are posted in different places. मतलब मान लो आपके यहाँ पर आईपीएस है तो that person might be from मतलब any other state also. So that depends. लेकिन जो आपके स्टेट लेवल पर आपकी पुलिस होता है, उनका अपनी जो पुलिस होती है, जो पुलिस फोर्स होती है, that is appointed through the state services. This is the difference, and this you have to remember. This was there in the paper. So UPSC has been entrusted with the task of conducting recruitment post for Indian government civil servants. Whereas जो state level है, they are also responsible for the public service from time to time. And the removal or suspension is subject to go to a thorough investigation by a Supreme Court judge. The bureaucracy is a vehicle. यानी कि ये सारे के सारे जो परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव्स हैं, दे आर द वन दोज हु एंश्योर कि गवर्नमेंट जो है जो भी पॉलिसीज को कर रही है, दैट शुड बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड. The demands and expectations of the average citizens are ignored by bureaucracy. This is one of the ड्रॉबैक ऑफ अवर ब्यूरोक्रेसी. अगर आप देखो ना, जो आईएएस वगैरह होते हैं, दे आर नॉट दैट मच सेंसिटाइज्ड. इट इज इजी फॉर यू, अगर आपके घर के आसपास में इफ यू हैव सम प्रॉब्लम, इट इज इजी फॉर यू टू रीच अ पॉलिटिकल एग्जीक्यूटिव, बट इट इज नॉट इजी फॉर अस टू रीच एनी परमानेंट एग्जीक्यूटिव. सर्टेन टाइम्स व्हाट वी डिमांड, हम लोग क्या मतलब कि देयर आर सो मेनी मूवीज एंड बच्चा प्लीज वो जो वो करते हैं ना, कौन सी मूवीज में दिखाते हैं कि भाई मतलब देयर आर सर्टेन मीम्स आल्सो एंड इंस्टाग्राम, आई हैव सीन इट, कि भाई गर्लफ्रेंड ने मना कर दिया तो जो है एक ही साल के अंदर कोई पर्सन जो है दैट पर्सन हैज बिकम आईएएस. तो इट इज नॉट लाइक दैट. वो एक बड़ा फेमस मूवी था, राजकुमार राव की मूवी थी. I still remember that, and I used to always question the same thing कि भाई how it is possible. वो तो पहले आईएएस बन गई थी, वो उससे पहले आईएएस बन के उसका हेड कैसे बन सकता है? It is not so easy. Cracking an IAS itself is a tedious job. It is something we know people dream of. You need to be regular from your 9th standard. If you really want to achieve that pinnacle, आपको 9th से आपका political science जो है वो आपकी मुट्ठी में होना चाहिए. Everything which is there in the current scenario, everything, मतलब सांस भी लिया होगा ना, वो भी उसके अंदर एड ऑन होता है. सो एवरीथिंग हैज टू बी एडेड. So, and then if you are in मतलब कि then if you are well versed with your 9th 10th 11th जो अभी आप पढ़ रहे हो, then 12th standard, each and every smallest one, जैसे ये जो छोटे छोटे फोटोज बनी है, इन सबको if you are मतलब कि thoroughly doing, you're taking मतलब even in some of the some most of the people go for a good coaching also, which has now become a trend. But as such as I as a teacher can say कि अगर आपने अपने आप को बहुत अच्छे से किया, you can clear, because it's you should have the basic knowledge, you should have the writing approach, essay कैसे लिखते हैं, you should have the current. उसके बाद once you do it and then you have to go through a series of interviews जिसमें पता नहीं क्या क्या पूछ ले. So easy. And then of course the seats are limited. तो नेवर थिंक इन दैट वे कि हाँ भाई हुआ तो होगा, तो नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होता है. बट येस ऑफ कोर्स वंस यू बिकम एन आईएएस ऑफिसर इट्स अ पोजीशन ऑफ डिग्निटी. लेकिन होता क्या है कि द मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम आईएएस आईपीएस आईएफएस दे आर नॉट सेंसिटाइज्ड टुवर्ड्स द पीपल. तो हाउ कैन वी डू इट? सम ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम्स. अब होता क्या है कि जहां पर भी आपका जो ब्यूरोक्रेसी है ना, वहां पर आज की डेट पर मतलब व्हेन वी से द वर्ड करप्शन, व्हाट हैपेंस इज इट इज लाइक इंटरमिंगल्ड. इट इज इंटरमिंगल्ड. जो मतलब कि गवर्नमेंट है वो चाहता है कि उसके फेवर में चीजें हो. नेचुरल है कि यू मस्ट हैव सीन द मूवीज लाइक गंगाजल. if you haven't seen, definitely you must see. As a student of political science, you must see. So they misuse the powers. तो अगर हमारा डेमोक्रेटिकली इलेक्टेड गवर्नमेंट जो है इन ब्यूरोक्रेटिक्स पे कंसर्न मतलब कि पूरा कंट्रोल रखता है, एंड ऑल्सो टू मच ऑफ इंटरफेरेंस शुड नॉट बी हियर, विच इज देयर. आप देख सकते हो whenever there is some मतलब कि किसी ने केस उठाया, it was there recently, last 2 years back, it was there in Chennai only, in Tamil Nadu only. One of the IPS मतलब जो मतलब मेजर वो थी, she had taken up the matter and within 10 days she was transferred. Sorry. So this has been there, and within 10 days, that girl, that lady, मतलब she's a young lady, she was transferred. So too much of political interference कभी कभी क्या होता है, जो मतलब कि politicians जो होते हैं उनका फायदा उठाते हैं. Despite the fact constitution established an independent recruitment system, जो मैंने आपको भी बताया, यूपीएससी and एसएससी are instrument. Many people believe that there is no safeguard in place to protect civil servants from political interference, which I have already. This is a fact. Like ये actual में fact है. And the main problem is कि everyone says कि I want to become an IAS officer, I want to clean the thing. लेकिन जब वो उसके अंदर पहुंचता है तो what happens is he is one among the others. It is also thought that there aren't enough safeguards in place to ensure bureaucracy is accountable to people. They don't. There have been mass, what you can say, killings. There have been mass. कई बार उनको पकड़ के जेल में डाल दिया जाता है. Even मतलब कि क्योंकि there are certain areas जहाँ they are answerable, but the people do not know actually these are working or not. If you go through certain books, you will find how many areas bureaucrats have been involved. Otherwise क्या इतनी बड़े बड़े scams हो सकते हैं आपकी आंखों के नीचे से? हमारी आंखों के नीचे तो मेरे से तो बच्चा एक चीटिंग करता मुझे पता होता. मैं बोलती रह जाती हूँ वो एक अलग बात है, बट पता होता है। तो क्या इतने बड़े स्कैम्स हमारे यहाँ जो होते हैं वो हो जाएंगे? इफ द मशीनरी इज राइट देन नेवर वुड बी देयर। The RTI is intended to make the bureaucracy more responsive and accountable, but unfortunately वही होता है कि RTI को डालने के बाद there are so many areas जहां पर we need to you know go through, and जब तक ये चीजें आती हैं, जब तक ये सब चीजें हमारे सामने आती हैं, things change. And there has been, you can say, the use of money and muscle power in many areas. It is very important. जब हम एग्जीक्यूटिव बोलते हैं बच्चा, तो एग्जीक्यूटिव्स आर एक्चुअली द वन हु आर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द एंटायर मशीनरी ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, चाहे आप उनको परमानेंट बोलो या उनको आप पॉलिटिकल के नाम से बोलो. So this is the chapter executive. I had made this notes of taking the help from the NCRT. So I don't think that you will actually require this. Still, I have opened the book for you to give that what I have taught today. This is what we have learned. What is an executive or executive? Actually, it is spelled like that. Then the three types of executives which I had done: presidential, semi-presidential, and parliamentary. And then I have also told you about the ceremonial. Like जैसे जापान जो है वहां पे पार्लियामेंट है लेकिन they have an emperor. In मतलब कि हाउ डू वी कॉल एज प्रेसिडेंशियल? तो प्रेसिडेंशियल में देखो, जैसे कनाडा हैज अ पार्लियामेंट्री, लेकिन वहां पर जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोनार्की है वहां पर क्वीन एलिजाबेथ जो थी, शी वाज, राइट नाउ चार्ल्स इज देयर. जापान हैज अ पार्लियामेंट्री सिस्टम, लेकिन वहां पर एम्परर, क्योंकि दे आर हैविंग द मोनार्की, तो they have the king as the head of the state. Italy has the parliamentary system with president as formal head and prime minister as head of government. Russia में semi है, श्रीलंका में semi है, but in India we are having what we call as president as the the first member. He is the head of the state as well as the prime minister is the head of the government. So this is how there are difference. If you see in our country, the president जो है उसका power होता है ceremonial. In Sri Lanka, the president has the power to choose the prime minister. The prime minister can be from his own ministry or from his own political party or from someone else. तो हमारे यहाँ ये चीजें नहीं है. This is the parliamentary. Then parliamentary executive के अंदर I have already told you about the president. President के बारे में आपको सारा कुछ मैंने बता दिया है. This is the article. I have also inserted it. मैंने बीच में डाला है. Then there's a then discretionary powers. हमारे veto powers, judicial powers. This is a pocket veto, which I said. This is the one which I said कि when no party comes into power, then it is the president who chooses. This is the example which I said that when elections were held in 1998, there were 21 seats short of majority, and he asked Atal Bihari Vajpayee to form the government and secure vote of confidence within 10 days. So this is the one example which I said that he has used it. This is, as I said, ये वाला भी मैं आपको बता चुकी हूँ. The vice president, मतलब वो जो है, he can act as a prime president if there is death. हमारे यहाँ ऐसा हुआ था. Then these are the Council of Ministers. कि हमारे यहाँ Council of Ministers कैसे रहते हैं, प्राइम मिनिस्टर की क्या क्या, प्राइम मिनिस्टर की क्या क्या फंक्शंस या फिर पावर्स हैं. These are the one. Then what should be the size of Council of Ministers? As I said that there was ये वाला जो है before 91st Amendment of 2003. The size of council minister was determined according to the exigencies of time and requirement. I think you remember मैंने अभी बताया था कि ऐसा कई बार हुआ कि जो साइज है वो बढ़ गया, मतलब इट शुड नॉट बी मोर देन 15%. अब आप देखो 100, 150, अगर 200 आपके मतलब कि टोटल मेंबर्स में से आधे लोग मिनिस्टर्स होंगे तो फिर एमपीज कौन होंगे. So at that time it was amended and 15% of the total number of members of the house को जो है council of ministers बोला गया. So this is how all मतलब कि ये सारा हमने पढ़ा. If you see everything is written in the, everything will be written. Then bureaucracy, that is the permanent executives. उनको कैसे हम लोग मतलब कि elect करते हैं. ये this is I have written in my notes also. This is the one. मतलब जो हमारे सिविल सर्विसेज है उनके अंदर हमारे 3 है, IAS, IPS, then central services all in. Now what is the meaning of this all India service? मतलब they can be post across. Central services का मतलब है they work for the central government, that is Indian Foreign Service, because they are related to union government. जो आपके जितने भी एम्बेसडर्स वगैरह होते हैं उनके, एंड स्टेट सर्विसेज होते हैं जो स्टेट प्रोविंशियल सर्विसेज के लिए यूज होते हैं. This all I have already explained to you, and how we can sensitize ये सारा. So this is what we call as the chapter executives or executives. मतलब this is the one how can we sensitize, और ये बाकी जो है मैं आपको करवा चुकी हूँ कि how IAS या IPS जो होता है वो अपॉइंट होता है. As I told you कि जो IAS या IPS होता है he or she comes from the all India services, but then they are मतलब कि appointed to the government, किसी भी दूसरे गवर्नमेंट किसी भी स्टेट में वो जाकर काम करते हैं, and when they are appointed by they can go back into the service of central government, and only central government can take disciplinary action against them. इसका वजह क्या है? Now there was a controversy कि भाई जो मतलब कि जो IAS ऑफिसर था उसने आकर कुछ गड़बड़ कर दी in the state. Now state cannot take any action. Reason क्या है? Is it democratic? Is it constitutional? There was a question. There was a question. And the reason is they are appointed by the central government. They come from the exam that is conducted by the central government. So that is why they are under the supervision of the central government, and only central government can take action against them. The state government can complain against the person. They can ask to remove that person, and it is the central government who has to take the final call. So this is actually very controversial हो जाता है. लेकिन भाई जब हम एग्जाम सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट का दे रहे हैं तो फिर स्टेट गवर्नमेंट हमें कैसे निकाल सकते हैं? एंड दिस हैपेंड विद द IPS ऑफिसर्स. मतलब ये हुआ था आई थिंक इन राजस्थान और सम स्टेट दिस हैपेंड, बिकॉज आई टॉट दिस चैप्टर पर्टिकुलरली तब ये हो रहा था. राजस्थान के अंदर कुछ ऐसा था, देयर वाज सम मतलब कि वो, एंड दे वांटेड कि वो जो मतलब की है IPS है दैट पर्सन शुड बी ट्रांसफर्ड. नाउ सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट रिफ्यूज्ड. सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट रिफ्यूज कर दिया. Now the question came ki the state asked ki don't we have any power? So the power is there. They can complain, they can produce the evidence, but they cannot remove the services, because IPS, IAS, they all come through the all India services. What is the difference between all India and central services? याद रखना class 11. All India services का मतलब होता है when they are appointed through the All India Service Exam, and they can be posted once they have completed the formalities, यानी कि आपका written exam, आपका interview, वो सब clear करने के बाद they may be posted anywhere according to their cadre requirement. Whereas जो central services होती है, they are under the union government, मतलब कि वो union को relate करते हैं, that is for the entire country. For example, Indian Foreign Service. And जो state services होते हैं, they are related to their own. And जो आपके other officers होते हैं, those who are working, they would be working under these bureaucrats. That is the entire chapter, executive.